Well, the virus has now killed more than 100 people in China, and new cases have been confirmed around the world.
So you don't want to frighten the American public.
France and South Korea have also got evacuation plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume
strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
That this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the US.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome to the War Room. It's Tuesday, July 14th, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 279 of War Room Pandemic, broadcasting live here on Capitol Hill. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on Newsmax later on in the day, on G News and GTV, subtitled in Mandarin and blown through the Chinese Communist Party's firewall, and of course, thanks to our great partners at America's Voice.News. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Raheem, I think I'm getting tired of winning this morning, whether it's from Poland or the House of Commons or the South China Sea. A lot of news to report today. We've got a packed show. We've got John Solomon on later. Pasovic's going to join us. Matthew Tierman talk about Poland. We've got Bill McGinley about the current this fiasco about mail-in votes. Chris Kobach about the wall and his Senate race. So it's a jam-packed show tonight. Today we're covering everything. Jack Maxey's going to have a whole special segment. We're going to talk about Dr. Fauci later in the program. So it's we're covering pandemic, the economic crisis, the geopolitical crisis, and the 2020 campaign, how this is all sorting out. But Raheem, I got to tell you, the tide is starting to turn here, and it's based upon information. It's based upon getting real information out there. The Chinese Communist Party is running a general scam throughout the entire world. They're full information warfare, full economic warfare. And where information and economic warfare converge is in telecommunications and technology and in social media. And we're seeing whether it's TikTok, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Huawei, that people are starting to take notice. And as soon as you go and look at the facts, it's obvious that the Chinese Communist Party's technology arm, the PLA's technology arm, has got to be taken out root and branch out of the West, out of free people. And we've had a big victory overnight. Remember, part of this was driven, we've been on this for months and months and months, but this has been a big fight really for the last couple of years. Over the weekend, I gave an interview to the Mail on Sunday, which is the big newspaper of the Daily Mail. That's their Sunday edition, and said, hey, this is just not about Huawei. You got to rip. Just not about Huawei and 5G now, which is a huge controversy about whether it's going to be taken out by the Boris Johnson government. This is about British Telecom. You're embedded into the system. And the CEO said yesterday on BBC it would take 10 years to get out. We got a lot of the same problem here in the United States, and we're trying to address it day by day. The President of the United States has signed a number of executive orders to start limiting Chinese telecom manufacturers and network providers to have access to the U.S. system. But yesterday was huge. Mike Pompeo declared that the CCP has claimed territorial ownership of the South China Sea. He said, hey, that's not happening. We don't agree with any of that. You've got O'Brien and Pottinger over in Europe talking to NATO right now. I think what you're going to see coming out of NATO is that Italy, France, the United Kingdom, Germany, NATO is now going to expand and actually start patrolling the South China Sea. And then, Raheem, a huge announcement yesterday in the Times of London about the defense minister. They're building a new aircraft carrier, the HMS, Her Majesty's ship, the Queen Elizabeth, that will be home ported in the Far East, probably in Singapore, but to patrol the Straits of Malacca and the South China Sea. People are starting to wake up about exactly what's going on here in this global conflict. Raheem, I want to turn it back to you. You guys have done such a fantastic job of exposing this in the United Kingdom. This this announcement about Huawei, huge victory for President Trump, huge victory for freedom, huge victory for the people of the United Kingdom, and for our audience out there, huge victory for you. Remember, we're winning. Victory begets victory, and when information gets out there, the Chinese Communist Party can't hide behind their shills in the West anymore. Their business partners are going to be exposed, time after time, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. So just a tremendous victory, Raheem. And why don't you give me some more details about what went on?
Yeah, that's right, Steve. And in fact, I think we can probably take you to the clip coming out of Parliament from this morning about the latest decision concerning Huawei and its involvement in the UK's 5G infrastructure. Let's roll this clip.
The new US measures restrict Huawei's ability to produce important products using US technology or software. The National Cybersecurity Center has reviewed the consequences of the US's actions. The NCSC has now reported to ministers that they have significantly changed their security assessment of Huawei's presence in the UK's 5G network. Given the uncertainty that this creates around Huawei's supply chain, the UK can no longer be confident it will be able to guarantee the security of future Huawei 5G equipment affected by the change in US foreign direct product rules. To manage this risk, they have now issued new advice on the use of Huawei in UK telecoms networks. So this morning, the Prime Minister chaired a meeting of the National Security Council. Attendees at that meeting took full account of the National Cybersecurity Centre's advice, together with the implications for UK industry and wider geostrategic considerations. The government agrees with the National Cybersecurity Centre's advice. The best way to secure our networks is for operators to stop using new affected Huawei equipment to build the UK's future 5G networks. So to be clear, from the end of this year, telecoms operators must not buy any 5G equipment from Huawei. And once the Telecom Security Bill is passed, it will be illegal for them to do so.
It's absolutely huge news, Steve.
So here's the thing, particularly for the hedge fund guys, remember, for you deplorables, some of the most sophisticated people in the world watching the show, we're going after all these companies. Be advised, if you got the stocks, you should start dumping them. We're going after every one of these front companies for the PLA and the Chinese Communist Party. This is a 180-degree turn. Everybody in the audience has to understand the future of advanced technology is based upon quantum computing. That's what Huawei and the PLA had taken. This was part of the grand Chinese strategy, One Belt, One Road for the logistics system, made in China 2025 for advanced fourth industrial revolution manufacturing to make them the center of that, and Huawei, a global network of quantum computing that's the future backbone of technology. This is 180 degrees. The British establishment, totally on the payroll of the Chinese Communist Party, and Huawei had supported this 180 degrees. That's why for everybody in the audience, this is so central to how your life and how your children's lives are going to develop, because this is the technological future. This is the fourth industrial revolution, and guess what? It's going to be driven by Western technology. Remember, the most important geopolitical event before the pandemic happened in the spring of 2019 that we talk about. The Chinese Communist Party made a decision to decouple from the West technologically, right? So Baidu, Tencent, Huawei, Zoom, TikTok would have their own, after stealing it from the West, they would come to have their own standards and be decoupled from the West. That shows you that we're going to go to their entire system. Today is a smash mouth victory. And I got to tell you, Raheem, I'm so proud of the people in the United Kingdom that stood up and fought this, because this was a long shot. And it's huge. It's going to have dramatic implications in the United States. It's going to have dramatic implications throughout the world. It's going to have dramatic implications for the lives of our listening audience. But this is the announcements over the last 48 hours are people are awoke to what's going on here with the Chinese Communist Party.
And Steve, it bears mentioning that while people like Nigel Farage and others have been campaigning on this for some months, it is indeed a very late U-turn from the British government on this, welcome though it is. But it also requires us to look into the detail of this. Now, they're talking about stripping all Huawei equipment out of that 5G infrastructure by 2027. So Nigel Farage saying this morning it's a partial victory in the sense that we should actually expect the British government to speed along that process. And then also look at the Huawei mechanisms that are inside other parts of British telecommunications networks, the 2G, the 3G, the 4G, the BT OpenReach boxes, the British telecommunications boxes that are on the side of every street in the United Kingdom that provides that, use Huawei technology. So while a victory, this is really the first big step and a foundation for more fights to come. And I just want to get back as well to something that you mentioned about the HMS Queen Elizabeth. Now, the HMS Queen Elizabeth is effectively ready to go, but will be deployed, as you said, looks like in the early part of next year in the Far East. And they're talking about this Carrier Strike Group 2021 deployment that will include the HMS Queen Elizabeth, and also obviously other US vessels and supporting functions behind it as well. We're talking about 24 F-35B Lightning II combat jets, 2 Type 23 frigates, 2 Type 45 destroyers, 1 Tide-class tanker, 1 RFA Fort-class tanker, and even the potential of 1 nuclear-powered submarine there, Steve.
No, this is the Royal Navy's stepping up. Remember, the South China Sea is the single most important waterway in the world. You've got to keep free navigation. This is what Mike Pompeo said yesterday. Look, here's what's happening. Since what we pride ourselves in is giving you tomorrow's news today, let me tell you what Mike Pompeo laid out and why O'Brien and them are over talking to NATO right now. The South China Sea, we understand, we're in an information war, we're in a economic war, we want to avoid a kinetic war. The way you avoid a kinetic war is start to push the Chinese back from where they've taken these, while America slept and the West slept, took advantage of us. The South China Sea is the point. Mike Pompeo, when he made this announcement from the State Department, said, hey, their claims are totally illegal. The next step's going to be, what they've done is built these reefs in the South China Sea that are essentially stationary aircraft carriers. They don't have the ability to really project power through aircraft carriers like the West does. What they have is stationary aircraft carriers out there with landing strips, missiles, radars, all that. The next step is going to be to tell them, hey, they got to go. They're a huge environmental problem. Right, for all the environmentalists and the Paris Accord guys and John Kerry and Joe Biden, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't care anything about the environment. Look what's happening in Three Gorges Dam right now with this flood. They don't care about the Chinese people. They victimize the Chinese people. They don't care about the environment. Don't care about that. What they care about is money and power. Okay, and you're seeing their money and power be rolled up before your eyes. And this is, I think, going to be the centerpiece of the 2020 campaign. Remember, Brexit happened in 2016 around this time. You're starting to see these kind of moves right now. We're going to get into Poland in a second, but you're starting to see momentum shift back to the Alliance of Liberty people that do not want to sit there and to continue to have the globalists support the slave labor business model that the Chinese Communist Party and their partners on Wall Street, their partners in Wilmington, Delaware, the global corporations, where Joe Biden is the concierge, right? Where the City of London, right, the Wall Street of Europe, where they all participate in this. You're starting to see it come back, and here's how it's coming back. It's you in the audience. It's the deplorables. It's the voices. It's the populist movement in the UK that called the elites, and we're going to have more in this book, Hidden Hand. The elites are in business with the Chinese Communist Party. That's where they're making their money. And making you a serf is the way they do this. So this is a huge victory. You see the United Kingdom starting to wake up, Raheem, and it just couldn't be. It feels like Brexit. This feels like Brexit in 2016.
Yeah, this is no small deployment, Jack. This is known as the super carrier that Britain's deploying there, which has enough firepower to take on entire nations, let alone other islands and other problems like that.
Do they still have the Marine Corps Air Wing on the carrier this time? Is it going to be U.S. Marines?
I have no idea.
They were earlier.
Yeah, but what it adds is you got a couple. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
No, I was saying, as we try to look over the horizon for our listeners and we see the West going against Huawei, one thing I think that we're all going to see very shortly is the Chinese respond by limiting the amount of metals that they will sell us to make chips. We have, as we learned from Eric Schmidt a few weeks ago, we do not have a single forgery in the United States that makes the chips that we can turn into, computer chips and send back to China. So I would say, be on the lookout for them trying to restrict that export to us, because they're going to try and give us some.
Oh no, they already hit back. They already hit back. They already hit back at. It was Boeing today. They've already put sanctions. I think Lockheed. They put sanctions on one of the companies already. Chinese are going to hit back. There's no doubt about that. They're going to hit you with sanctions. They're going to try to play hardball. That's why. Look, you have the Czechoslovakia in 1938 is in Hong Kong right now.
Steve, we got a break. So let's go to this break. We'll rejoin this conversation immediately afterwards. Matthew Tierman will join us, talk about Poland's elections and the big populist victory for Duda, President Duda re-elected in Poland, what it means. We'll be back. War Room Pandemic returns in just a moment.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Just like you, I had problems sleeping. I tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. 15 years ago, I invented MyPillow. It took me 2 years to develop because I wanted to have everything you would ever want in a pillow. I made sure that you could adjust my patented fill so you could have the exact support you need as an individual, regardless of your sleep position. I also wanted a pillow that would last, so I made MyPillow machine washable and dryable. I back MyPillow with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Not only that, I do all my own manufacturing in my home state of Minnesota.
I really like the fact that it was made in the USA. I think that USA products are a better quality product. I've tried a lot of other pillows, and nothing's worked like MyPillow.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now to give you deep discounts, not just on my pillows, but also my mattress toppers, sheets, and so much more. For example, you can get body pillows regularly $89.99, now only $29.99, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
I used to think that sheets were just sheets. I got the Giza Dream sheets. They are the most comfortable sheets I've ever had.
The Go Anywhere pillow is so easy to just roll up and take anywhere I want to go.
Go Anywhere pillow is really comfortable, so that's what I really like. It's nice and supportive and it's nice and small.
The MyPillow topper, for the first time, has enabled me to have a cool night's sleep. I'm able to go to bed and just get rest.
That's 3 inches of wonderful that's in the MyPillow mattress topper. It's just like a firm cloud.
MyPillow helps me get a good night's sleep so I can do my job in the morning.
Go to MyPillow.com to get deep discounts, not just on my pillows, but so much more. For example, you get body pillows regularly $89.99, now only $29.99, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
My son needs this drug. I hope it doesn't cost too much. I hope my insurance pays for it. Can you tell me how much this will be?
$67.
Sorry. Wait, have you heard about GoodRx?
GoodRx finds free coupons to help you save up to 80% on your prescriptions.
Wow. I had no idea.
GoodRx. Stop paying too much for your prescriptions.
Jim and Joanne are here to pick up the same prescription. They both know the system is not on their side. They both know drug costs are out of control. But one of them is taking back control with GoodRx.
Next.
So while he's paying that much, even with his insurance, she's paying this much just by using GoodRx. Use GoodRx to compare prices at pharmacies in your area and stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today and take back control.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
In these turbulent times, remember NetSuite by Oracle is the software you need for all entrepreneurs. If your company's $1 million to $100 million in revenue, this is the software package you need. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon, to get your special report, 7 action steps that every entrepreneur needs to take. Back to you, Raheem.
So I want to introduce now one of our old and esteemed friends and colleagues from here in the United States, but who has done a lot of work in and around Poland. Matthew Tierman is a journalist, an author, an activist, and is really going to bring us what happened with the election in Poland, the presidential election. That, as Steve always says, victory begets victory, and once you get the ball rolling, it's really hard to stop the momentum on these things. We obviously opened the show today with more victories out of Europe this morning, with Britain banning Huawei. Matthew, thank you for coming on the show this morning. Explain to us, because we had been hearing for some weeks, we had President Duda visiting President Trump in the White House recently. We've been hearing for some weeks that this really probably wasn't going to go Duda's way, and there may be a big win for the globalists in stopping the Law and Justice Party in Poland. But Duda eked it out, and it was very much a slim victory. But tell us more, Matthew.
Well, thank you guys for having me, as always. Yeah, it was close, but it was expected to be close. It's a parliamentary runoff system where the fragmented parliamentary parties all come together in the first round, and if nobody gets a simple majority, then it goes to the top 2 vote getters in a runoff. And this was fragmented. There was a spoiler in the first round coming from Duda's far right in the Konfederacja party, which is as ethno-nationalist a party as exists in Poland, which is not a very ethno-nationalist country. It's a country that does believe in pluralism, as long as on the right side you maintain a healthy level of Poland first patriotism. That's what's evolved in the last few years. In the runoff, it was 51.2% to 48.8%, which is the closest it's been in the second rounds since 1990. But the hand-wringing coming from the left saying that there's no real mandate, it's so close. If you look at the last 5 of 6 runoffs, they've all been 51.5% to 54%. So they've been close to these coin flip probabilities once you get to the runoff. Yes, this is a good validation of the populist nationalist mandate that Law and Justice received from the plebiscite, but again, somewhat expected. It was a late substitution to get Trzaskowski in, the mayor of Warsaw, who is a progressive hero. And there was a coalescence not only on the left, but this Konfederacja spoiling party that, out of spite, considering their right of center, more than half of them in the runoff voted for Trzaskowski, who is a child of Berlin and Brussels, metaphorically, and quite literally a child of communists and even communist sympathizers.
Matthew, just explain for the audience here, what were the dynamics at play here? We know we had one side that was more globalist, one side that was more populist, but what were the platforms, what were the major talking points surrounding this election? And what, it's a slim mandate, certainly, but as you say, you go back to 2015, this is what happens in the Polish system, this is what happens in a lot of European countries, because they have the second and third and sometimes fourth and fifth rounds of voting. What is Duda now? What was the platform he's standing on, and what is he now expected to carry through?
Well, the fault lines were drawn, and this is something that you and I and Steve, we've been talking about since 14 and 15 with Europe, the populist nationalist surge that started occurring with these pro-sovereignty parties before Brexit, Brexit being a apotheosis in Europe with this dynamic. But it really comes down to almost a binary characteristic, which is, do you believe in more sovereignty, which the Polish right does, or more European Union integration and cohesion with what comes with that, which is open borders and ceding your sovereign decision-making capacity to Brussels and generally by way of proxy to Berlin. On economic issues, there's a lot of alignment between the Polish left and right. Most post-communist nations are still grappling with the right mix of free enterprise and socialism. Certainly the policies fiscally and monetary have been accommodative under this Polish government, the 500 plus, much like Hungary's programs to stimulate births and repatriation. They've been successful. Birth rates have ticked up. Poor Polish immigrants who had immigrated to the UK to wait tables in London have come back to Poland and can have 2, 3, 4 kids because they're getting somewhat generous subsidy from this government, and this is strengthening Poland. It really did come down to this sort of sovereigntist binary fault line, and the country spoke yet again, which is a very bullish sign for Europe's sovereignty parties again.
Matt, I want to bring Steve in on this conversation. I know we've got Jack Posobiec in studio and Jack Maxey. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, before we get to Posobiec, I'm going to ask Matthew, one of the most important 2 or 3 speeches that President Trump's ever given is when he went to Warsaw, I think in the summer of 17, and gave that magnificent speech about the defense of the Judeo-Christian West. Walk us through geostrategically. How important was this? But, Duda didn't just happen to be in Washington. He came over to show solidarity with President Trump on a geostrategic basis, particularly given that Russia's the new junior partner of the Chinese Communist Party in Turkey, in Iran, in Pakistan, in North Korea as they try to consolidate the Eurasian landmass. How important is this geostrategically, and how much of it harkens back to that really show of unity President Trump gave in the summer of 17?
I think it's pretty easy for most of us to see and say that the strongest alignment politically, philosophically, culturally, and within the contemporary agenda within Europe and the U.S. is Poland and the U.S. It's when it comes to the security capabilities that NATO is protecting the peripheral border, which Poland is geographically there. They're the ones at risk of a breach from the east in the Suwałki corridor. So Trump has been very, very helpful to Poland in buffering security. Energy. Poland has been, as all of Central Europe has been, at the mercy of Russian energy pricing and sometimes predatory practice, turning off the gas at night in winter in Ukraine a few years ago. They're willing to use energy as a weapon, not an economic efficiency mechanism of growing their own domestic economy vis-a-vis Russia. So Duda and Trump have done many deals with American LNG. It's Polish importation of American energy that has helped lead America's net exportation revolution. All of these things are strongly aligned. Trump and Duda have a strong personal relationship. It's not coincidental that Trump had Duda a week ahead of the election. Of course, the Atlantic Council folks said, how dare they interfere in Central European elections with this symbol? Meanwhile, these are the same people who, when Hillary Clinton was in the State Department, were taking cues from Soros on Balkan elections and really putting their thumbs on the scales with funding and actual dramatic on-the-ground movements. So these things are very, very, very strongly aligned between Poland and the U.S., and it bodes really well for the next 5 years. It's a 5-year term. Hopefully Trump wins again. Polls are overwhelmingly pro-Trump, not just because of the diaspora in Rust Belt states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. There is truth to that, but because they recognize that Brussels and Berlin are not their friend. Berlin views Central European nations as economic vassals and Brussels as political vassals. So the American engagement in Poland is something that Poles overwhelmingly are ecstatic about, unless you're on the far left like Trzaskowski, the mayor of Warsaw, who would rather cede sovereignty to Brussels and Berlin and is renaming the streets of Warsaw, attempting to, after the communists, like his family were descended from communists. Ironically, his mother was informing on my father in the 50s and 60s to the secret police.
Steve, 3 minutes in.
Posobiec, put this in perspective. By the way, we're going to roll over into the next segment with Jack. I know Matthew has to go. Jack, put it in perspective of what this means.
Well, Steve, what we need to understand as well is that this is a huge win, not only for the American alliance with Poland, but also for President Trump, for international nationalist populism that's been on the rise around the world, but also something that even started before the Trump administration came in was the connection between the United States and Poland, bringing in the Aegis ballistic missile defense system that they're constructing there on the northern shore of Poland, on the Baltic. We've already got one up in Romania that's fully capable. The 3 Cs initiative, this is a huge economic and energy relationship, and this is the reason also that you're seeing the movement of U.S. troops now from Germany into Poland. We talk about this as a Trump move. Trump did greenlight this, but this is something that had been in the works for some time. The president was moving forward with it, understanding that this is the new strategic relationship between the United States and Eastern and Central Europe as we look to both create a bulwark against the Russians to the east, but then also to create a new economic relationship for the United States as we see the EU sliding more and more into something that looks completely different from what it used to be. This is the reason that the UK pulled out, was as you know, Raheem played a little bit of a role.
Jack, we want to hold you over to the next segment. Matthew, how do people? I know you've got to run to for a meeting, but can you tell us how people can get more access to you? You're one of the smartest thinkers out there, and if people can get past your abrasive personality, you've got a brilliant mind that
it's impossible. I've been trying for years.
Raheem, grown-ups are talking. Come on. Matthew.Tiermond at Twitter.
That is Mike.
You can Google it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Also, Steve, your silver lion's mane looks great. Matthew.Tiermond at Twitter, and I'm all over the place, as you guys know.
All right, we gotta go to a break here, but thank you, Matthew Tierman, and thank you for the segue, because I want to just jump into the YouTube live chat for a second and read you some of the top comments on the YouTube live chat before we go to break. Number 1, Steve is looking Braveheart-like. Number 2, let Steve be a pirate. Number 3, Steve's hair does have that easy breezy windblown look. Number 4, Steve's hair is very hot. And number 5, Steve has the best hair of any geopolitical commentator. We're going to get that on the site in big quotation marks. This is War Room Pandemic. Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec in studio with us. Raheem Kassam and Stephen K. Bannon will be back. Hashtag War Room Pandemic to have your say after this short break.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification, and when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters, or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. You'll also get a protective carrying case, yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight, just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-788-1008. That's 1-800-788-1008. Or visit bynighthero.com. That's bynighthero.com. Order now.
Frustrated with heavy rubber hoses that always get tangled and easily kink? Introducing the Bionic Flex Pro hose, the super strong, super tough hose that's ultra light as well. Run over an ordinary hose and it'll easily burst, but the Bionic Flex Pro hose stays intact no matter what runs over it, because its reinforced drag-resistant commercial-grade outer polyester weave makes it tougher and stronger than ever. And its solid brass fittings are crush-proof too. Ordinary hoses kink easily and stop working, but the Bionic Flex Pro hose never kinks. It just keeps flowing strong. And while regular hoses easily get tangled, the Bionic Flex Pro hose is tangle-proof. You can get the 25-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose for just $19.95 with free shipping. But wait, order today and we'll upgrade your order to a 50-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose. Just pay a separate fee, and shipping is still free. Go now.
Call 1-800-313-8062.
You hate coming home to a dark house, and leaving lights on all night drives utility bills out of sight. You need the Bell & Howell Bionic Spotlight, the outdoor motion sensor light that turns on the instant motion is detected and turns off when the motion stops. Bionic Spotlight is solar powered, so there's no expensive wiring or batteries to change. The instant the motion sensor detects movement, Bionic Spotlight triggers 8 high-intensity LED lights that shower the entire area with light and then shuts off 30 seconds after it stops. So you can spend hundreds of dollars on an outdoor lighting system, or you can get the motion-activated Bionic Spotlight for just $19.95 with free shipping. Bionic Spotlight is backed by our 5-year warranty. But wait, if you order right now, you can double the offer and get a second Bionic Spotlight. Just pay a separate fee. And when you call, ask about the contractor's discount on the complete 6-light home value set. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-486-4451 or go to BionicSpotlight.com. That's 1-800-486-4451 or order online at BionicSpotlight.com.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. So much to go through today from all around the world and indeed here in the United States. Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Jack Posobiec joins us in studio. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, if you need to be an entrepreneur at the lead of turning this around, what you need is the tool NetSuite by Oracle. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon to get the 7 action steps you should be taking today. Remember, we talk about the turbulence in the world every day here on Pandemic. This is a great example. Talk about the South China Sea, Huawei, the CCP. But remember, there are going to be as many opportunities created as there is problems in this crisis. If you're an entrepreneur, now is the time to take advantage of those opportunities. You need a software package that does it all. That's NetSuite by Oracle. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon. You get your 7 action steps every entrepreneur needs. Raheem, back to you in Pacific.
Jack, so I want to just wrap up with you on what we were discussing before, and Jack Maxey, I know you had some observations in the break about this latest piece coming out from Anne Applebaum, who has typically been the globalist cheerleader who resents to the most extreme levels her rhetoric and her the kind of the Louise Mensch of American Polish relations, right? And she's saying that, well, I mean, read us the headline for The Atlantic, and then I want to get Jack's response on this.
Let me pull back The Atlantic.
Pull out The Atlantic, and we'll get to that in a sec.
Well,
okay, Jack, let's just pivot while we pull that up. Okay, hang on, Steve. I just want to, we discussed at the break. Jack, the Huawei ruling from the United Kingdom this morning and the new news that the Queen Elizabeth supercarrier is going to be deployed in the Far East. Talk to us about your perspectives on this.
Well, Raheem, far be it from me to explain British naval strategy to someone from
otherwise known as competent
Empire.
Naval strategy.
But this seems to be a hearkening back to the Singapore strategy, and the Singapore strategy was the Royal Navy strategy from 1919 up to about 1941. This was prior to World War II, where they used Singapore as a base of operations for the Far East Fleet. And now, of course, at that time, the issue was the rise of the Empire of Japan. So Imperial Japan was becoming more belligerent. Obviously, they struck out in 1941, but it was centered around protecting those Straits of Malacca as the strategic choke point. Obviously, the one thing that hasn't changed since 1941 is the geography of the South China Sea, with the exception of a few dotted islands that we've now seen from courtesy of the People's Republic of China. And so looking at the sea lines of communication, or what we would call those sea channels, we know that the Straits of Malacca, also, by the way, Straits of Malacca has been a high ground in terms of piracy. Raw oil, raw crude is stolen there on the regular. It's actually, if you look at it pound for pound, it's actually higher than piracy off the coast of Somalia has been. Obviously, we've got major operations off Somalia.
But what people will want to know is what's coming next, and what reaction can we expect from the Chinese Communist Party? Is there any chatter going on? Have you picked, I mean, you're a Mandarin speaker. Have you picked up on anything that's coming out?
Well, what's interesting is that the way China's responding is that they're panicking, right? They realize that they don't have the ability to extend their imperial overstreach this far in this many places at once. We tend to think of China as this all-powerful force that has the ability to influence everywhere, and they have been, but only through soft power. They've been able to spread their money, but they don't have the infrastructure yet. They still essentially have a brown water navy. They don't have the infrastructure around the world to be able to fighting on all these forces. And so if the United States and UK together put pressure, they can knock them down.
Okay. Pasobek, this is the key. This was Obama's pivot to Asia. This was what Biden was in charge of. And all the West did was back up, and concede to them the South China Sea. Remember, it was Joe Biden that was specifically mandated to oversee this. And in fact, she came on a state visit and signed this declaration: no more cyber intrusions into your companies, and we're going to demilitarize the South China Sea. He was played. These are both bald-faced lies. The cyber intrusions increased dramatically 6 months after the deal was signed, and they totally militarized the South China Sea. Obama's total pivot to Asia was 1 Marine Brigade, 4 deployed in Darwin, Australia. This is calling the bluff of the Chinese Communist Party. They're a paper tiger. They're a paper tiger. They're only because of access to Western capital, access to Western technology, access to Western markets. We've created this Frankenstein monster. The West has created this Frankenstein monster. This is now, you're seeing a unified alliance of liberty, whether it's the Modi and the Indian nationalists up on the border of occupied Tibet fighting the PLA, or it's in the South China Sea where Pompeo calls them out. This is totally illegal what you're trying to do. Remember, in the South China Sea, they're trying to say this is an internal sea of China. This is our territorial sea. And once they control it, they cut off Taiwan, they cut off Korea, they cut off Japan, and they basically force the United States out of the Western Pacific. So this is the alliance standing up, and Joe Biden's got a lot to answer for, because the reason this has to be done today is that, just like Pasovic said, they're a brown water navy, but they're building rapidly a major blue water navy to basically take control of the South China Sea. The reason we're in this jam and we're reversing it now is Joe Biden and the feckless Joe Biden, plus Wall Street, the City of London, the global corporations that want this. We got a lot more to go through. Posobiec, I want you to stick around. Raheem, let's bring in our next guest, Bill Mcginley, who people know from War Room Impeachment, was with David Rifkin, was our wingman to really walk us through all the complexities. But he's got a warning, and I got to tell you, the Republican Party and the Trump base, if you want to see more wins like you're seeing against CCP right now, if you want to see more wins in the South China Sea, if you want to see freedom and democracy defended, right, and prosperity, we're going to have to win this election. Bill Mcginley, I think, is got a wake-up call for everybody. So let's bring Bill in.
Yeah, Bill, the former White House Cabinet Secretary and former NRSC General Counsel. Bill, walk us through your warning. What have you noticed? What are you seeing out there, especially regarding postal voting, mail-in ballots? It doesn't sound good from what you've told me offline.
Yeah, so basically what we're beginning to do is pick up anecdotal evidence that a lot of the Republican voters and Trump supporters out there are getting confused by some of the messaging that's coming out about mail-in ballots not being safe and secure. There needs to be a distinction between absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. And one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that the president's supporters, those men and women of all stripes who have come together to support this, the silent majority who he is speaking for in Washington, request their absentee ballots. Get their ballots in early so that the campaign and the RNC can do its coveted get out the vote campaign on the people who may be on the fence. If the absentee ballots go down for Republican voters, for conservative voters, this is going to have potentially dire consequences for the president and his supporters and those in Congress who are trying to help him advance his agenda come November 3rd.
So hold it, Bill, I'm still confused. Tell me what's going on. Are we going to have mail-in ballots? Can you do, because I vote absentee a lot because I'm traveling or I'm on a campaign somewhere. But what's happening? What's the current state of play? And I know a lot of people don't like this theoretically, and I don't particularly like it, where you've got all these mail-in ballots and like Colorado votes by mail. I like election days, but the reality is the reality. This is going. So explain exactly where we are, because I say November 3rd is not election day. November 3rd of 2020 is the last day of the election, right? And people got to shift that mindset, whether we like it or not. You're going to have to deal with it, right?
That's right. And so, you know, historically, many states for absentee ballots, you actually have to be, number one, properly registered. Number two, you actually have to request an absentee ballot, and you need to do it in enough time so that they can mail it to you, complete it, and return it, whether it's by mail or in person. There's also early voting in many states now. What we need to do is it's just like we did during impeachment, Steve. What we need to do is we need to recapture the high ground here and know that the most fundamental thing in our democratic republic is voting, and that our people need to turn out to vote. They need to own their vote. And what I mean by that is you need to educate yourself about the voting rules in your state. Go to the Secretary.
We may have lost the connection to Bill there. We'll try and regain that. But just to pick up on, we'll try and bring Bill back in just a second. But just to pick up on that, one of the tweets that came out recently that really has prompted a lot of people to look deeper into this, guys, is one from a GOP pollster who says, just finished a statewide survey in a swing state. The quarter of the voters who plan to vote by mail or absentee break 15% Trump, 75% Biden on the presidential ballot. Republicans are skeptical about voting by mail, and that's a problem up and down the ballot. Steve?
No, I think I want to go back to this mantra. You got to own the vote. Look, get out the vote is going to be everything. You know, I think the election, the framing of it will be the next between now and Labor Day. But people start voting on these early votings, these mail-in votes. I understand it's very confusing. It's kind of like the pandemic rules in each state. But for the Trump supporters out there, and particularly, you know, Cernovich said yesterday, and a lot of people are saying, hey, there's not really a fire in a lot of the Trump supporters because there's been so many kind of, misdirection plays sometimes from the actions in the White House. But look, I think what Mcginley said, own your vote. And that means to find out what the rules are in your state, make sure all your friends and colleagues know what those rules are. We're going to have to play, and I realize there may be court challenges later or whatever, but right now it looks like a significant portion of this may actually be done by mail. If that's the way it is, that's going to be the way it is unless some court challenges take place rapidly. And so I think people have got it, and I agree. That tweet the other day I think was a shocker. Also, I think the registrations or the mail-in votes, I think 300,000 difference weighting to Democrats in Florida. And so this is going to be remember, November 3rd is not Election Day. November 3rd in 2020 looks like it's going to be the last day of the election. The election could be already decided by mail-in votes, in the month of October. That's why this thing is in a very quick time. We have to have a sense of urgency. So, Raheem, I'd love to hear you and Maxie and Jack Posovic's perspective of this. That's why we want Mcginley on. I'm very, very, very concerned about this issue.
We actually have Bill back on. Bill, we've got about a minute left to go here before the break. Just give us your final thoughts here.
Sure. In connection with Own the Vote, you need to educate yourself. Make sure that you're registered to vote. If you're already registered to vote, you need to make sure that your registration is active and current. You need to know your absentee ballot rules and deadlines, and you need to request your absentee ballot. You also need to get your vote in early, which a lot of people call bank the vote. You need to make sure that your ballot envelope is filled out properly so that it'll be opened and counted. And you also, if your jurisdiction does not have prepaid postage on that envelope, make sure you put some extra postage on there to make sure that the post office has enough on there to deliver it, and order it early. Also, contact 5 to 10 people who are like-minded with you and make sure that they're doing the same thing. Everything great in America starts from the bottom up, and this is something where each individual Trump supporter can actually create their own system to try and get out the vote, not only to support the president, but those people in Congress and at the state and local level are trying to help him implement his strategies and policies.
Bill, just finally, where can people follow you? Where can they get more from Bill Mcginley?
I'm on Twitter at WJ Mcginley. So it's WJMCGINLEY.
Fantastic. We're always grateful for you, Bill Mcginley. We've got to get you back on very soon to talk about more of this and reiterate this as well for the wider audience out there. It's a problem. We're going to go to a quick break now. When we come back, more Stephen K. Bannon, Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, and Damani Felder will be joining us after this short break.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this.
Let's stack the deck.
When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain, and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something.
If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like Copperfit, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do not give up.
A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with Copperfit.
Yeah. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete.
Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
Copperfit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good.
That's what I've been saying.
You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
Copperfit, live limitless.
America's Voice News brings you real news and real opinion in a real world. If you care about this country, then you can help by sharing America's Voice with your friends and family. We're here to bring you the truth with no agendas. America is one of the greatest countries of all time. We need a great leader to keep us on track and safe. If you support this president, then help us by being a beacon of hope and standing up for this great nation. Join us as we fight to bring you the truth in a crazy world. Search America's Voice News on all apps, Roku, Pluto TV, and Dish Network Channel 219. Please help by downloading America's Voice News to your phone, on your smart TV. Search America's Voice on all your internet-connected devices. Then share the truth with your friends and family. America's Voice News, the real news network. Join the America's Voice revolution and consider yourself an American patriot.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. It's July the 14th, the year of our Lord 2020. Vish Bora, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam, and Stephen K. Bannon joining us down the line. And joining us also down the line now is Damani Felder, the founder of YouTube's hashtag The Wright Brothers channel. You want to check it out on YouTube. Want to bring Damani in here, especially to respond to something that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez said recently. You know, we have a rule here, by the way. There's no fighting in the war room. There's also no white-splaining in the war room. We want to hear, you know, from authentic ethnic minority voices talking about what's happening in their communities. And you know, Vish has done such a great job in bringing us people who have been in the Uncle Tom movie. I believe Damani is in that movie as well, which you can find out more about at UncleTom.com. But first, let's play this clip of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and I want to bring Damani Felder to respond. Let's roll it.
So why is this uptick in crime happening? Well, let's think about it. Do we think this has to do with the fact that there's record unemployment in the United States right now? The fact that people are at a level of economic desperation that we have not seen since the Great Recession? Maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have money. So you maybe have to, they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to shoplift some bread or go hungry that night. Maybe it's the fact that unemployment provisions have not been given to everyone. Maybe it's because of the fact that some people still haven't gotten their stimulus checks yet.
So, Damani, what do you think about AOC's comments right there about, you know, why this uptick in crime is happening across America?
Yeah, are we really seeing a massive spike in the shoplifting of bread? Is that what's happening here?
That's not what's happening at all. AOC is very good at cobbling together word salad and making the appearance of being intelligent. But let's be honest here. When we look at what President Trump has done with the economies before this coronavirus hit the United States, we have record low unemployment for not just African Americans, but for women and for Hispanics as well. Those are just the facts. So the fact that now she's trying to blame any uptick in crime on people who are struggling, you have to also remember that AOC is in a city that has had some of the most severe and the most strict lockdown rules that have kept people home, that have kept people away from their places of employment in many cases. And it's just a shame to see that she's actually willing to prey on the real, genuine fears that people have and trying to pin this recent crime wave that we have when we've seen a lot of these Democratic mayors in these blue cities who have authorized all of this anarchy and just this overall social unrest under the guise of social justice. It doesn't make any sense to me, but AOC, like I said before, has been very good at using her platform, unfortunately, to continue to perpetuate this notion that minorities are inherently disadvantaged by default. We have to call her out for what she is, and she is just a purveyor of more and more fake news.
So, Damani, there's obviously been this movement for defunding the police, growing amongst the ranks of all sorts of leftists and Democrats. Is this solution, defunding the police, the solution that the Black community needs right now and moving forward, the Black American community needs? Is this something that's viable?
Absolutely not, Vish. There were over 375 million police-civilian interactions last year. And of those, depending on the source, depending on if you're looking at Mapping Police Violence or the Wall Street Journal or Washington Post, the number of unarmed Black men who were shot and killed by police last year, that number varies from roughly 9 to up to 23, depending on the source you choose to find your information from. So you're looking at that statistical minority of cases where the overwhelming majority of these cases you never hear about because nothing terrible ever happens, because most people, even if they are black, they do follow the law. But we're seeing these cases, these very few cases where police officers are unfortunately having to take lives for people who are being more or less aggressive towards them. We're seeing these blown out of proportion, and what we're seeing with this defund the police is the notion that we can have social workers go in and diffuse, domestic violence disputes and all. It's completely baseless. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure. I think this is just the most recent catalyst that the left is looking for to go after the police, because as we all know, they've been fomenting civilian distrust of police for a very long time. So every time one of these situations happens, like with George Floyd most recently, or Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor, these people immediately will seize upon this shooting and then try to enforce draconian governmental overreach as a result. And in this case, it's just defunding the police. But we need police in our communities. We need police who are actively invested in their communities, helping to curb this crime wave that we've seen, specifically as it relates to the minorities. There's minorities who don't want to live in fear, minorities who don't want to be afraid of going outside because they might be a victim of a drive-by shooting. But a lot of these problems start from within. When you look at the overall culture, and a lot of the fingers that we're pointing at other people, like the police, need to be pointed directly at ourselves as minority groups, as Americans, to hold each other accountable, to say if there is real crime happening in our inner cities, we need to figure out how we can best figure out ways to lower that crime wave ourselves. And we need to actually look at the culture and figure out if the culture itself is not the reason for this tendency for violence. A lot of the media that people ingest, they begin to latch onto that, and then we see them manifesting the worst facets of the media that's been foisted upon them by the cultural powers that be they Sean King, LeBron James, or others, where they fully internalize this notion that the police are out to get them by default, and then they act in a malfeasant manner as a result and expect to see no consequence from that. We need our police in our communities. We need our police to have even more funding so that they can be more adequately equipped to help those minorities who really do need them and their presence in our communities.
Damani, I wish we had some more time, but we got about 30 seconds left to go in this hour. Just quickly, let us know where the audience can find more from you, where they can follow you, where they can subscribe to your content. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, can we just hold Damani over for the start of the next one? I got a couple of questions I want to ask him.
Damani, if you can stay over, that'll be even better. But in the 30 seconds we have left, sure. Why not give yourself a plug anyway? That way in the break, people can go and subscribe and follow you. Damani, where can people do that?
Sure. YouTube, I'm at The Wright Brothers. Twitter, at The Damani Felder. Instagram, at The Damani Felder. Parler, at The Damani Felder. And I believe I said YouTube already as The Wright Brothers.
All right, fantastic. We'll make sure that we get all of those links into our daily email today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get your hands on that, make sure you go to pandemic.warroom.org. Hit the newsletter button. Greg Mance, Carl Albert, and the team put together all of the show notes from the show with all of the links that we talk about, every article, every piece of data, every tweet that we mention here. You can get all of that for yourselves and make up your own minds. We're not here to lecture you. Just here to provide you the information. You make up your own minds. Hashtag War Room Pandemic returns. More Damani Felder, Vish Burra, Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Kassam after this break.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Just like you, I had problems sleeping. I tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. 15 years ago, I invented MyPillow. It took me 2 years to develop because I wanted to have everything you would ever want in a pillow. I made sure that you could adjust my patented fill so you could have the exact support you need as an individual, regardless of your sleep position. I also wanted a pillow that would last, so I made MyPillow machine washable and dryable. I back MyPillow with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Not only that, I do all my own manufacturing in my home state of Minnesota.
I really like the fact that it was made in the USA. I think that USA products are a better quality product. I've tried a lot of other pillows, and nothing's worked like MyPillow.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now to give you deep discounts, not just on my pillows, but also my mattress toppers, sheets, and so much more. For example, you can get body pillows regularly $89.99, now only